Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and what a delight and an honor to have our own congressman in the studio with us today, Congressman Greg Walden. He heads up the Congressional District number 2 in the state of Oregon, which is larger than some states out there.
Most states.
Yeah, takes in 30 counties, and I don't know if you probably live in a car, don't you?
You know, I do. Good to see you,
Good to see you. Welcome.
Yeah,
good to see you. Boy, we got a lot to talk about. By the way, you are also the Republican, let me get this right, you are the Republican Congressional Committee Chairman.
Yes, National Republican Congressional Committee. My job is to make sure Nancy Pelosi does not come back as Speaker of the House.
Good. How's it going, pal?
Yeah, it's going pretty well.
Is it?
3 weeks from today, we'll all wake up and find out what actually happened. But the long and the short of it is, this is the 6th year of a president's term. It's often a referendum on that president and his policies.
Right.
And president even spoke the truth and said he's not on the ballot, but his policies are.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the ABC poll that's out this morning or the Wall Street Journal poll, they both say president is in bad a shape as Bush was in '06. And is right teeter on the edge of it's his worst numbers, and people really are fed up with this administration and all its failures, and they're going to take it out on the Democrats at the ballot box. We still have to go earn it, but I'd say we're in pretty good shape.
Now, you're in control of the House now. Are you going to gain seats?
I think we will. We have an aspirational goal to get to 245. We're at 233 right now.
Wow.
So that'd be about a dozen-seat pickup. And the playing field's pretty small. There are only about 40 seats in play.
Really?
Probably less than that as of this morning. And so the Democrats are on full retreat. We're on offense. They're seeing what we're seeing, which is they're in trouble. Their party's in trouble. The plans, everything they've done, voters are rejecting. And, people are concerned. They're rightfully so.
All right. Congressional approval rating, all-time low. How are you handling that?
Those other 434 guys are rascals. You have to go earn it in your own district. As an organization, people are frustrated, and I'm frustrated. Yeah, you look at, there are only 8 members of the House that have passed more bills than I have. Only 8. Wow. And some of those are very specific to Oregon. Our forestry legislation, bipartisan. We've not passed it once. We've passed it twice. Senate hasn't taken it up. 3 times we passed our legislation for Bowman Dam, twice unanimously in the House. Once it was packaged up with other bills this fall, passed again. Senate won't touch it. So I'm frustrated too.
You think and this is a little bit speculative, but if the Republicans take over the Senate, obviously your forest bill could see the light of day.
Yes.
That's got to be a biggie for the district.
Yes.
And what does it say, Greg? What's it say?
Well, it's pretty simple. Actually, it says we're going to go manage the forests.
Good. Right.
And for half the ONC lands, we'll put them in a trust to insulate them from frivolous lawsuits. We'll manage them under Oregon Forest Practices Act law, which is how private and county forests and state forests are managed. It's very reasonable, very thoughtful, very sensitive to the environment, but creates jobs. And we'll have Oregonians in charge of that management process with a fiduciary responsibility to actually actively manage that half of the ONC that would be in the trust. Now, the second piece is that we would set up expedited processes on all forests where you could more actively manage those areas that have been designated for active timber management. So we actually get the work done that the plans call for. And it would create or save 3,000 jobs and produce the revenues that our local communities, Jackson, Josephine, Klamath, need for basic law enforcement, teachers, roads. So it works for the communities, and maybe we wouldn't have choked air sheds and basins and valleys all summer long with smoke.
Well, let's hope the Senate gets turned around, and I don't know, are you watching that from your perspective?
I am, because there's some crossover in the states where we have competitive races. I think it's better than 50-50 right now. Republicans take the Senate, and if we do, we have to govern. We have to show the American people, and we can, and we will, that we have really good ideas to get America on track, to use America's great energy reserves, to build the Keystone Pipeline, to reform, repeal, however you want to describe it, Obamacare, and get back to where it's a patient-doctor relationship and not some bureaucrat in Washington making the decisions.
But the president would still have the veto pen.
He would. He would.
Yeah.
So then you have to be really smart about how you get it done. But we've had 54 votes to repeal all or part of Obamacare. He has signed 9 of those bills into law.
Really?
Because we've just worked it through. There are a bunch of others pending. There are things that I've advocated to help our rural fire departments. One of which is they want to treat volunteers as if they're paid staff, which puts an enormous cost burden on. They'd have to provide insurance. We passed that unanimously in the House. That's a bill he'd have to sign if it got to his desk.
Right.
If there's a breach in healthcare.gov, one of the bills we passed unanimously said the government has to tell you your data's been stolen. Harry Reid won't let it come up for a vote. That would get signed by the and there are bigger issues, obviously. The biggest is probably the budget issues and the energy issues.
Wow. All right, Cover Oregon, a big mess. I know that you kind of led the investigation on that. How's that going, and what impact would that have if the feds really do step in and say, hey, wait a minute, we want our money back?
Right. So those are all issues. We asked the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, to do a full independent, fact-based investigation at Cover Oregon to figure out what went wrong, how did this happen, who is in charge, who should be accountable, how do we stop the waste, what are the implications of going to the national site. And by the way, I know my opponent says, oh, it's a partisan deal. No, it's not. Both our senators also asked for the same, unbeknownst to me. But really, the guy who started the investigation years before that was Dennis Richardson, who I hope is our next governor. He was sounding the warning bell early on saying,
in committee,
there's a problem here. Governor, there's a problem. Look, $186 million wasted on a website that doesn't work. My opponent was on the Cover Oregon board during that period. And she said, well, the website works, it's just the public can't access it. Really? I thought when you build a website, Perry, you wanted one the public could access. So we got to find out what went wrong. And there are calls in Congress by people from other states saying, hey, that's our federal tax money you all wasted.
Yeah.
And so this thing gets a little dicey if we're not careful.
All right. Boy, there's a lot of issues in Washington, and I don't know how you keep track of all of them. And a lot of scandals have come and gone and kind of got pushed aside. And I know that we're all very concerned on the international front, what's going on there. But let me come back to the VA issue.
Yes.
I know that you were very passionate working and trying to cut through that mess. How's that going?
You know, I think we're making progress, but it's step by step. Just like a lot of things out of this administration, they played hide the ball. They had separate lists. They didn't tell the Congress the truth. They didn't tell the veterans the truth. They misled the people and the veterans who needed care. Said, oh no, they're getting access. Well, it turned out they had different lists, and you read about all that. So we did a couple of things. We gave the Secretary of Veterans Affairs the hire and fire authority over senior managers. If it hadn't been our veterans, we never would have gotten that done. But now you can hold somebody accountable who's actually in charge. And so he now has that authority. Second, we said that veterans who have waited more than 30 days, there will be an off-ramp to go get care. Third, we said, let's try and figure out how to get to a model where you get care in your own community. Now, here in Southern Oregon, we were able to help save Source, the Southern Oregon resource and clinics. And that's been a big deal. And they've discovered they had a diamond in the rough. Now they're improving the facilities. But not everywhere has that access. So where we don't, out in the rural areas, why don't we let our veterans just go see their local doctor in their local hospital?
Do you think a voucher system for vets will ever be about?
There's a pilot, in effect, in this bill for those who have been denied access to care for a certain length of time. So we're able to test out and figure out the right model.
It seems simple.
Oh, I know.
I mean, simple doesn't work in Congress.
No, it doesn't. No, especially in the bureaucracy. There are a lot of vested interests in that bureaucracy that don't want to give up what they have.
Yeah.
Our goal should be, how do we take care of the people who took care of us and protected our freedom? That's where we should start the discussion. And how do we do that in an expedited way so they get care sooner and in a way that's affordable? Those two things have to always be in balance. But we can do that better than it's happening today.
All right, let me take a break here, Congressman. When we come back, there's a lot to talk about on the international scene. I'd like to hear your perspective about our so-called war on terror, and some other issues. We'll be right back with Congressman Greg Walden.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
All right, we're back. Congressman Walden's with us today, and we caught him in between coffee breaks. between Dutch brothers and human being, actually. Anyway,
got the Dove coffee
there we
right
go.
here.
There you got
Whoever
the best
that is.
There you go. Thanks for being with us, Congressman. And I know you're hot on the trail and got a lot going on. The war on terror. You know, we're sending troops to fight Ebola, but we're not sending troops to fight terrorism. What's going on here? From your perspective, you see it all. And we got people that want us dead. It's pretty simple. They want us dead, and they want Israel pushed into the sea.
Yes.
Why can't we get this?
Yeah. I think we get this. I don't think the administration gets this.
Okay.
And it all goes back to the beginning when the president did not get a status of forces agreement in place with the Iraqi government. And if you sort of read the history of that, the opportunity was there, the necessity was there. I don't think he wanted it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to get out of everywhere as fast as possible. He wanted the complete reset with Russia. By the way, how's that working out?
Yeah.
You know, he pulled back on the missile defense system in Eastern Europe, which those leaders had really laid themselves out politically to go along, and then we pulled the rug out from under them. They're still unhappy.
I mean, we're following France. What's wrong with this picture?
You know, and so there are two separate issues here. Obviously, Ebola we can talk about because it's a very serious threat, and I don't think they reacted quickly enough or more effectively enough early on. But second, it is going back to this terror threat. It is real. It is upon us. There are at least 3,000 people over there fighting in ISIS, ISIL, however you want to describe it, who have Western passports. That doesn't mean they're all U.S., but Europe, wherever, which means they have expedited ability to come and go. Now we're, you know, hopefully tracking all of them, but not all of them. And when they're tweeting from the White House and they're tweeting from, you know, Chicago saying, we're here, we're coming after you, you better take it seriously because we have no reason to doubt their intent. I mean, anybody that's barbaric enough to take knives to the throats of aid workers and journalists and put the video up on TV tells you these are not people that share our values about life. And so I think it's really essential. Now, as others have said before me, you know, an F-15 is not a strategy. Shooting down some missiles is not a strategy. Now, an air war is part of this, but you have to have somebody's boots on the ground. Now, when you've got such a reluctant commander-in-chief as we have right now, I need to know what that strategy is from start to finish before I would support such a move.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there are fighters on the ground opposing ISIL that we should be working with and should have been working with a lot sooner.
Why aren't we 100% behind the Kurds?
It is a really good question. It is a.
I mean, why are we just supplying them with everything they need? Because they'll take care of it.
Right. They will.
Yeah.
Trust me. The Kurds know how to fight.
Yeah.
And so we should be supporting them, and we are in some ways. And you know, there's probably some things we're doing you and I don't know about, or I know about. I'd have to, you know, sorry, man, if I told you. But it's not enough, and it was slow. When the president threw the Intelligence Committee under the bus by saying, "Oh, they didn't see this coming," maybe he missed another of his briefings, because in our briefings we were aware a year ago that ISIS was building on the Syrian border.
And the junior varsity?
Yeah, you think? This is a highly sophisticated, extraordinarily well-funded, organized military that is not doing what Al-Qaeda did. Al-Qaeda would hit and run. ISIL is hitting and staying. Now that sets up opportunities and problems for them. If you're holding ground, you got to have a supply route to do that.
Right.
But they've acquired hundreds of millions of dollars along the way, sophisticated weapons along the way. Meanwhile, you got, you know, the Ukrainian thing going down with Russia, supplying them with these weapons that can shoot down commercial aircraft. And all of that's moving around. The president's been slow to act. Show me a place in the world, Perry, where under this president, our foreign policy is stronger and America is more respected.
It's embarrassing. It's just embarrassing, but it's also very, very serious. And I think that the electorate is saying, all right, something's got to happen. Hopefully it shows up in the midterm elections that sets the tone for 16. But all right, you and I probably could chat all day on that. I'm just glad to know that you're there, because I would hope that if we have the chance to support the Kurds even more, we ought to do that. At least that's a start.
This issue, by the way, will come up. The authorization for the ground activity and the supply was through early December. I don't remember the exact date.
Okay.
But it got us through the election, so we can get the politics of this issue, never be part of it.
Okay.
We'll come back in December in the Congress, and we'll have another opportunity to have the president actually present us with a real-life strategy and how he's going to achieve what he's going to achieve. And so there will be a new opportunity. And you know things are bad when Jimmy Carter is attacking President Obama for not having a comprehensive strategy for the Middle East.
Yeah, couldn't get any worse than that. All right, I do want to take a few moments on Ebola. The whole world's up in arms over this. We seem to see that CDC may even be confused. I want to be fair there, but at the same time, this is serious stuff. Why aren't we doing confinements? Why aren't we doing quarantines? Stop the flights. Why aren't we doing this?
See, that's where I'm at this point. Is we need to overreact.
Yeah.
Because what we were assured could not happen has now happened. We were assured that if no one would show up with Ebola here. B, if they did, we knew how to contain and control it. Now we don't have just one nurse who has been diagnosed with Ebola at Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas. Now today we learned there are two, and it may expand beyond that. And this is a game of math at some point. Because if you're infected, how many people did you get into contact with, and how many of those people get infected? How many? It spreads rapidly, and that's why I think at this point, given the assurances that I wouldn't take to the bank, I think you have to go backwards and say, stop. Let's not let anybody else in from those areas that potentially could bring Ebola to the United States. Let's back up here until we figure out how to get this right.
How do you keep this a health issue and not a race issue? I mean, because
it's clearly a health issue.
Yeah, but I mean, you've seen some of these guys saying, "Oh, well, you're profiling and doing all these things coming out of Africa."
The only thing I want to profile is: are you at risk of bringing Ebola to the United States? I don't care what you wear, how you talk, anything about that. It's health, and then we got to get to the cure.
There just seems to be, Congressman, a real credibility issue on this with the administration. Every report we've heard has been corrected. We haven't heard one report that's been true. Somebody gives a report.
On this topic or which?
On Ebola. Yeah, well, you know what I'm saying?
There have been a few others we haven't been able to take
they're not contaminated. They are contaminated. Right. You can't get it. You can't get it. I mean, we don't know. I mean, now you're possibly facing public panic.
We don't want to get to that point, right?
Right.
But we do want to get to where we can accept the assurances we're being given as being accurate. And so I was on the phone this morning with the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Fred Upton. They're having a hearing. I'm on that committee, but on the subcommittee on health and healthcare, chaired by Joe Pitts, we'll have a hearing, I think it's tomorrow, on this issue of Ebola. So we will hopefully get to the answers on what happened there in Dallas. How do we make sure it doesn't happen in any other hospital? And how do we get this thing pushed back before it gets away from us? Because if it grows exponentially, you got a real problem.
All right, back to Oregon just for a moment. As you travel around the district, what do you see to be the top issue?
Jobs and the economy. But I'll tell you, this Ebola issue is hot. The national security issues with ISIL is very big. And I think it's a referendum on incompetence in government. Cover Oregon. You don't have to get out the full word cover before people are just ready to throw something at the wall.
Yeah.
The wasted money there. That $186 million they blew on the website is half of a year's budget for all of higher education. You want to do something about bringing down cost of education? Let's spend the money there, not on a website that doesn't work. And now we're defaulting to the federal website anyway. Now you got a question of those who got the subsidies because we had an exchange. Do they have to pay those back? Because the law says if your state doesn't have an exchange and you default to the federal one, you don't get subsidies. So, I mean, there's just chaos, confusion. So people are mad about that. And in our district, Perry, as you well know, it's these forests, the lack of management, the lack of jobs, the smoke, the destruction of our watersheds, fires every summer. People really want a fix there. And we've got it for them. We've passed it twice in the House.
All right, so hopefully the Senate turns. You can force the president to do some things on that. We're hearing it among some of the state races. Jobs obviously is it. Right. How do we improve? But it's interesting. I had some of the county commissioner candidates in, and they obviously want to see the forests opened up. But really, that's your jurisdiction, not theirs. Right. I mean, they can come and lobby you, but we're
all on the same page.
But you've already put forth the bill, right?
And passed it twice.
Yeah.
And they all, by the way, have passed resolutions in support of our legislation. I think it's all but maybe Multnomah County. Virtually every county commission in the state has taken a position in support of our bipartisan House-passed bill.
If that was to pass and you get it out there, just how much of the economic impact would it, how fast would we see it?
It would take a while to ramp up. I don't want to say, oh boy, tomorrow, you know, chainsaws are getting started up. But we have a year transition built into this legislation for secure rural schools. So you'd have a bridge for a year, and then there's some pretty tight timelines to get the agencies going. I mean, they're going to have to write some rules. They're going to you got to get sales going and all of that. So even if it were law today, it'd take a couple of years to get it set up and actually functioning. So that's why it's so imperative that we not waste time. It's why we passed it a year ago in September. Senate did nothing. And we passed it again this September. I mean, they may hold a hearing after the election on a different version that nobody's really seen or understood, that's not been run through the same models ours was run through the governor's task force. They've got an economic model. Peter and Kurt Schrader, I said, run ours through so we know. 3,000 jobs.
So you're saying there's about 40 seats in play in the House that you would pick up, or you
That's
in play,
the wide range.
Yeah, and you're trying to go from what number to what
233 to 245.
Okay.
That would be, if we get to 246, it's the biggest majority since World War II for Republicans.
So you're moving in that direction.
We are.
Okay, and it looks good.
6 to 8 is what most of the independent prognosticators say today, 3 weeks out.
Okay. Are they Tea Party types?
Oh, it's all over the map.
Is it?
It's all over the map. We're a big country, and the House reflects.
The only reason I asked that because I think there's the question is whether or not there would be a change in leadership at the House with Boehner, Speaker Boehner.
You know, I don't think so. I don't think so either.
Yeah.
And he is our biggest campaigner in chief out there. He's literally been all over the country helping, and he's got the toughest job in Washington. Oh, I'll tell you. I used to say never, but I don't think I'd ever want his. Yeah. Especially in this, he's got to go get lectured to by Harry Reid and Barack Obama every day, because those are the other two leaders.
Yeah.
And so it's really a hard deal. And we're a diverse country. You get down in South Georgia, it's a different set of politics than the seat we may pick up in Maine. We may actually win a seat in Maine. There are 2 seats in Massachusetts that could well be in play. Perry, most Republicans, it's been so long, they don't even know how to spell Massachusetts. And so, I mean, seriously. So we'll have a broad spectrum in the conference going forward. But there are things we do agree on, and that is, how do you get deficit spending down? How do you get to a balanced budget? How do you free up America's energy reserves? There's no light between us to get the Keystone Pipeline built and the 20,000 per year jobs.
By the way, how does that look?
Stalled.
Okay, it's
Harry
stalled,
Reid won't even let it come up for a vote.
So if
he's gone, that'll be on the floor of the Senate within a couple of months, I would wager. We'll repass it in the House because you got to start everything over. It'll be on the president's desk. Is he really going to veto that? He might. He might, but at least he won't be protected by Harry Reid from having to make tough decisions.
Yeah.
Right now, there are 380 plus bills the House has passed. 40 of them are Democrat-led that are just good policy. He won't even let those come up.
I know you have to go to your next appointment.
Sorry, I'm getting fired.
No, you're fine. I know you have to go to your next appointment.
Yep.
Do you think the president is governing outside of his jurisdiction? In other words, he's abused his authority?
Yes.
So why aren't we pulling him up on that?
We are. Oh. We have authorized in the House by a vote, which I supported, to go to court to sue over this failure to uphold his constitutional responsibility. It is the one area where we have a ray of hope to actually get a victory. And it's over the issue of, well, I don't know if they've identified which one yet, but it's probably over an issue involving health care and Obamacare, where he wrote the law, right? He signed it in, and now he's tried to change it on his own. And that's not the way democracy works under our U.S. Constitution.
What about just executive order abuse?
Same issue. Same issue. We can go there. But it's so hard to stop. That's what we're learning, is the president has a lot of power. And if he has an attorney general like Eric Holder, by the way, good riddance, Eric Holder.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I see where he's going to delay whoever that's going to be until
after the election. Just like they're delaying telling you what your insurance premium is going to be on Obamacare until after the election. You can go on the website, start picking plans. You just don't know what they're going to cost.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice to see you.
Very good to be with you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank
I know
you.
that you do a lot of travel. You're on a tight schedule. And let me just say, contact him if you got any questions or concerns. He's got great offices. He's got one here in Medford, one in
Bend,
one
in LeGrand, and part-time in Hood River.
Part-time in Hood River. That's called his wife. And then
yeah, she does snap me every once in a while.
And then,
but she has no contract. She is not,
oh boy, isn't that a mess?
Yeah.
Isn't that a mess? with our own supposed First Lady. Thank you, Congressman.
You bet, Perry.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
The book is called... Welcome back. And earlier, our own Steve Johnson had a chance to talk to the author of Barefoot Tribe and shares a story of how he went from being raised in the jungles of Liberia to becoming a pastor. Well, I think you'll find that conversation to be pretty interesting. Let's take a look. The book is called Barefoot Tribe. Take off your shoes and dare to live the extraordinary life. And we're going to find out what this extraordinary life is all about. Our guest is Dr. Palmer Chinchen, and he is the author of this book. And this guy gets around a little bit. We're going to talk about his experiences. He was in Liberia. You know, it's a country now that's in the news a lot, unfortunately, because of the problems with Ebola and all the rest. But Palmer, let me ask you first. Give us an idea. You are somewhat of a globe traveler, and why is that? What takes you around the globe? What's the reason?
Well, yeah, I do think of myself as an expatriate, and the way I challenge when I write and when I teach and I help lead a church called The Grove is that there are places that are broken around the world, and if there are broken places and people, then we as followers of Christ should be the first ones to go there to make a difference, like in Liberia right now.
So it sounds like you've been to a lot of third world countries, I assume? Is that right?
I spent quite a bit of time recently in Haiti because of the earthquake. I've been spent a good amount of time in Cuba, and then Thailand recently because we're trying to promote becoming modern-day abolitionists. But my home really growing up, and for about half my life, I spent in Liberia and in Africa. And so the metaphor, this title, Barefoot Tribe, comes from growing up among the tribal people of southern Liberia, the Sapo tribe, in the Sino rainforest, some of the world's deepest jungle. And I grew up in a bamboo mat house, and my pet was a chimpanzee named Tarzan, and my friends all ran barefoot. We played soccer every day, and they played barefoot. And it used to be, because of running barefoot, you would just contract a pinworm or hookworm or filaria or bilharzia, which can kill you, but now it's even more deadly. The children of Liberia are contracting Ebola.
All right, there's a lot of things to get into here, but what was the situation as to how'd you grow up in that environment? What were the circumstances?
Well, my father started out as a jungle missionary training pastors in the bush, and then after 7 years in the jungle, he decided the greatest difference he could make is through higher education. So my father, Dr. Jack Chinchen, founded a Christian college in Liberia, African Bible College, and then Malawi, and now Uganda. And I think making a difference through education is one of the greatest things that's happening on the continent right now.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this living the extraordinary life that you are daring people to do. What is this about? What extraordinary life are you trying to get people to embrace?
Well, I feel like there is a tribe, to use, you hear like Seth Godin in the business world using that language, but there's a tribe of Christ followers who are pooling their resources and their best abilities, and they're collaborating to make a difference in the most desperate places in this world. And so Barefoot Tribe is a challenge to the church, at least the kind of church I grew up in, that was a little dispassionate toward broken neighborhoods and blighted inner city slums and shanty towns and villages. And today, you know, this next generation Christian is living differently. They care about those things. They see that we are connected through technology, social media to the rest of the world. And when they're hurting people in Haiti or in Liberia, they want to make a difference. And so I say, join this tribe, because together with a massive tribe, we can make real change. Yeah. Can I read you that? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go
Steve.
ahead. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Can I read you the challenge that I open with? It's a manifesto in Barefoot Tribe.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, and this kind of will give your listeners and watchers an understanding on Dove of what this is about. But in Barefoot Tribe, I open with this: we will stop injustice. We will embrace people of every race, nationality, and background. We will become social entrepreneurs and empower fair trade. We will become modern-day abolitionists. We will end extreme poverty. We will stop the spread of pandemics, and today I'll add, like Ebola. We will put down our weapons and promote peace. We will live simply. We will create more art and make the world beautiful, and we will love like Christ always. So that kind of is the heart, the passions behind Barefoot Tribe.
You know, and I can see somebody could go to a third world country, or they could do this in their own neighborhood. I mean, you're not necessarily telling people you have to go halfway across the world. This is something that everything you mentioned could be done in our own communities, right?
And that's the challenge. It starts, if what we do globally is going to be legitimate, it starts in our neighborhood with our next door neighbor, and then it starts in our own. Every town in America and city has its own blighted neighborhood and inner city slum, and it starts with you being Christ there. We challenge our people at the Grove to live on mission, and this next generation is living that way. And I'm saying to the rest of us, it's time for us to join this tribe.
All right, Palmer Chinchen is our guest. He's the author of a book called Barefoot Tribe. We're talking about how you can live this extraordinary life that he's unfolding before us, and maybe you have thought of before, but you thought, is that something I can do? You know, let me give you kind of, I don't think it's a stereotype. I think it was actually pretty accurate. We think of missionaries of old where you would have somebody who'd come in and they would show you slides, if people can think back that far, and they would tell you, here I am with a tribe of whatever it is in this far-off country you may not have heard of before, and here I am doing stuff. And then people would look at it and say, wow, isn't that great that they are doing those things? But there wasn't that personal connection. I've noticed that even since, for example, the Haiti problems down there that started so many years ago with the devastating earthquakes and all, that there are people in their 20s who would say, you know, I'm just going. Now, it may not have been that well advised, because I'm not sure that they knew what they were going to do. Some of them that I know of got as far as the Dominican Republic, and they couldn't get into Haiti itself. But the passion was certainly there to do it. Are you finding that this is, the message you have is a generational thing? It probably has no problem reaching younger people, but maybe older people are not thinking of themselves as doing what you are talking about, perhaps?
And you've hit the nail on the head, Steve, because, and Haiti's a great example. We had actors like Sean Penn down in Port-au-Prince with a shanty town he built, or a tent city for 40,000 people, and he's saying to the rest of us, get down here. And yes, you had the 20-something-year-olds getting on planes and doing whatever it took to get down there and help. And really, I challenge in Barefoot Tribe the dispassion of past generations who we just sometimes want to cut a check. And so today I say, God wants you to donate your life. And this next generation, the millennials that you're talking about, we can learn from them because they're following the call of Abraham. We read in Genesis 12, we read, he went, even though he didn't know where he was going, but he responded to the call of God. And this generation justice is how I term this next generation Christian, and I write about them. They actually want to make a difference in the places that are hurting. Can I give you an example of what we call Barefoot Sunday?
Yeah.
Steve, so it started a few years ago, and that's kind of in part where the title of the book comes from, Barefoot Tribe. I was taking shoes back to Liberia after the Civil War. At the same time, I was taking shoes to Haiti after the earthquake, because it's one of the most, one of the things people in poverty need most. I know that from my life in Africa. But pretty soon I ran out of shoes, so I told my church, the Grove, I said, I need all of your shoes too. And I said, so we're going to have a Barefoot Sunday. And on that day, I want you to come to church wearing your best and favorite shoes, and then go home barefoot and spend the rest of the day walking that way, so that you walk with the poor. And in many ways, the shoes are needed, and they're desperately needed, but in many ways it becomes a metaphor for how we have more than enough if we share our excess, and that we don't empathize enough with how 1.3 billion people live every day in extreme poverty. So my sons, when I got home, Steve, they said, that's the worst idea ever, Dad. No one's coming to church on that day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they did. The good news is they were wrong. On Barefoot Sunday, our services were packed. People left over 2,000 pairs of shoes. My wife, that was worried, she said, it's a record high, 107 degrees today in Phoenix. And I said, good, people's feet will sizzle on the asphalt, and they'll remember what it's like. They'll feel what it's like to walk barefoot. And then, Steve, we shared those shoes, and next year they left 5,000. 2 years later, I took a shipping container of 12,000 pairs of shoes to Liberia. And then I put people on motorbikes and send them up jungle trails to share the shoes through pastors and village chiefs. And the love of God comes through that, and the compassion of Christ comes through that.
You know, I'm not sure why your sons would have thought that was a bad idea. I thought that was a great idea. You know, and I can see where people would say, you know, I can do this. I might not be able to go to Liberia and know all the details of that, but I can certainly help out that way. And that's a pretty basic way of helping out. I mean, we're seeing right now, we're having fires just across the California border in Weed, where there's a person who started their Facebook page and saying, hey, they just need the basic necessities. Let's meet that need. And I'm thinking, do we make some of these things too complicated as to how we can help somebody somewhere else?
And that's a great way to think about it. And that's one of my first challenges in Barefoot Tribe, is that with your one life, this very important life that God has given you, He wants you to make a difference. And the problems in this world are not too great for solving. And if all of us collaborate, and that's why I use the metaphor of a tribe, we can make real change. And right now in Liberia, for example, Steve, just yesterday, I got a heartbreaking note from a really good friend of mine, a pastor in Ganta, Liberia, saying, Palmer, Ebola is spreading in the outhouses. He said, I have a woman in my church that was caring for sharing a house with a woman who was sick, and because they shared a toilet, she's going to the outhouse in flip-flops or barefoot. Now she has Ebola. And he said, so here's what he says. He says, I know you brought shoes before. Please send more shoes. And he's right. Something as simple as a pair of shoes helps curb. It's not the ultimate stop, but certainly among the tribal children who run barefoot and desperately need shoes, it helps curb the spread.
Let me just ask you briefly, since you brought it up, how is the Ebola concern? And I know that we've said that we're going to send 3,000 soldiers over there from the United States to help out. How are the problems there impacting what you're trying to do in that country?
Well, for example, all education has had to stop, and so we've had to close the doors of African Bible College in Yakepa, Liberia. But at the same time, I am thrilled by the response. We've stepped up our response as a country, and now my challenge is to the church. Let's come alongside our government. Let's come alongside the churches in Liberia, and let's care for their people. This is the time to rally. Now, the job is not just for our government. It doesn't stop there. The responsibility, when you read, like Isaiah 53, it's for you and me. When you read the words of Jesus Christ in Matthew 25, it's for each of us to respond.
Let me mention Dr. Palmer Chinchen, the author of Barefoot Tribe, Take Off Your Shoes and Dare to Live the Extraordinary Life. Thanks for being with us. I'll tell you what, when you make your plans and you're going to do more over there, would you let us know, and we can talk more about what your efforts are and maybe how we can help you?
I love that. And if you would, please point your listeners and your viewers to barefoottribe.com, and I will keep everyone updated with what we're doing next. We're working on sending medical pods to Liberia to help house the sick and get them out of their homes safely. And so I'd love for any of your leaders or listeners or viewers to partner with us.
Okay, and that again is barefoottribe.com, is that right?
Right.
All right, Palmer, thanks for being with us.
It's excellent to share these passions. Steve, thank you for taking it to heart and sharing this message of Barefoot Tribe.
What a wonderful story.
All right, that'll do it.
All right, coming up next, Dick Morris. Yes, the author, best-selling author, and political commentator. Dick Morris will be with us right after this break.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Welcome back. Coming up in just a few moments, we're going to have one of the most prominent American political consultants and commentators, Dick Morris. He's authored over 14 books, and of course has become well known for his insightful look at politics and guiding quite a few elections and candidates to victory. And of course the one that brought him to prominence was that he was the one that kind of orchestrated the comeback for the re-election of President Bill Clinton in 1966. His website is extremely resourceful. You may want to check it out. It's dickmorris.com. Not only does he have a lot of articles there, but he also has a lot of videos there, and I think you might find them to be pretty interesting. Some of the videos that are available are the stock market crash, the greatest U.S. presidents and why, Obamacare's impact on the election, et cetera, et cetera. So I think you'll find dickmorris.com to be a pretty resourceful website. His latest book, Power Grab, and it is already a bestseller. Dick, nice to have you, friend. How are you?
It's great to be here, Perry. By the way, if you go to dickmorris.com and you sign up, I'll send you a video every single morning at about noon about that day's political events.
Oh, great. Okay, dickmorris.com. Check it out and get signed up for the video. Well, listen, I know our time is short. By the way, I chuckled all through the morning show here for the previous 2 hours before we had you on, giving your 10 clues as to why Hillary's definitely in.
and that, by the way, is another website people might want to check out. It's called thehillarydaily.com. thehillarydaily.com.
All right.
thehillarydaily.com. And Eileen updates it every hour or so with wonderful information about Hillary and news and opinions and all of that.
So your opinion, she's in no matter what?
Yeah, well, if she has a pulse, she's going to run.
Well, okay.
So my book is Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation. And I believe he wants to transform all of America into what California is now, where there's just one party dominated by ethnic voting. And the Republican Party is kind of a little yapping lapdog that never amounts to much and doesn't have much impact on what's going on. And I think the plan has three key elements: immigration, entitlement, and coercion.
Wow.
For the immigration part, what he's doing is basically taking 12 million people that live in the U.S. illegally and not deporting them. And then he sends a notice to the registrar of voters all over the country saying it is illegal for you to delete anyone's name from the voter roll if they've moved or died for 4 years. In other words, if they haven't voted and you don't get the postcard back, you have to wait 4 years to drop the name. So we have 5 million dead people and 25 million people who've moved still on the voter rolls. And then he gets Acorn and his various groups to vote these people in other states when they don't live there anymore or when they've died, but the names are still there. And, for example, in North Carolina, they did a study and they found that there were 35,000 people who voted in North Carolina, and somebody with the same first and last name and birth date voted in another state. So what happened is the guy, lived in Ohio, and he moved to North Carolina, and he votes in North Carolina. In the meantime, some illegal immigrant, with the help of Acorn, votes under his name in Ohio. And because there's no photo ID, they get away with it. And 35,000 votes in North Carolina is enough to carry the state. And then, on top of that, he wants to get rid of the Electoral College and have the popular vote decide who's going to be president. And the way he's doing that is not amending the Constitution the legal way with 3/4 of the states. Instead, he's going to do it with just about 20 states, mostly Democratic big states. He's gotten 11 of them with 165 electoral votes to pass laws already saying that their electors will not be voting in accordance with the popular vote in their own state, but the popular vote nationally. And the result is that this will take effect when enough states have ratified it to be a majority of the Electoral College.
Now, Dick,
if he gets this done, he could just eliminate the Electoral College and let this phony popular vote that he's padding this way create a lock on the presidency.
Dick, in the state of Oregon, they've been trying to eliminate the open, take away the primaries and do the open primaries. Is that the first step of this?
Well, I support that, actually. I think that that's a very good idea to do what they do in California, which is new in California. That could reduce the partisanship in the country because right now the Democrats and the Republicans both have safe districts. And therefore the Democrats and Republicans need only fear primary fights, not general elections, because they're safe seats. And that means that a Republican moves to the right and a Democrat moves to the left. But if you put it all together and anyone can vote in anything, and it's just the top, is it the top two that run it off, or do you keep party primaries in Oregon?
All right, so the other one is entitlement.
In Oregon, do you keep the party primary under this proposal, or do you just permit cross-voting?
Well, right now it's closed primaries.
Yeah, okay. So that might not be a good idea. I might have misunderstood it.
Yeah.
But let me proceed with subsidies. I think Obama's concept is to make the economy not work, reduce employment, and move people to entitlement, because that way he guarantees the vote. When he took office, there were 70 million people getting government subsidies. Now there are 105 million getting it. And I think the purpose of Obamacare is not only to socialize medicine. I think its main purpose is to create an entitlement that the middle class has to use to get its insurance.
Oh.
So instead of just happily choosing the insurance you want and you can afford, you have to choose a soup-to-nuts insurance that costs so much that you need a subsidy for it. And that's another 10 or 15 million people dependent on subsidies and therefore dependent on the Democratic Party.
All right, Dick, I'm almost out of time, and I wish I had you for an hour, but what do you think is the squeeze to take over the Senate? What's the sneaky plan?
I think we're going to be in pretty good shape on that. I think that we now have about 8 states in which Republicans have pretty good leads, and 2 more that might fall to us. And the Democratic plans to steal a seat or 2 by running an independent in Kansas and South Dakota appear to be falling short. So I think we're going to be okay on that. And I think and one of the reasons I wrote this book before the election, Power Grab, is that it really explains what we can do once we take the Senate. There's a huge number of things that we can do, even with the president having a veto, that will dramatically change stuff, and Obama can't do anything about it. And they largely relate to our capacity to go line by line in the budget, whereas Obama does not have a line-item veto.
Wow.
And I explain it in great detail in the book.
It's called Power Grab. One other quick question, and that is back to Hillary. Do you think she's electable nationwide?
Yeah, I think she's electable. I don't think she's going to win, though. If you're following what's going on Wall Street right now, Dow is down by another 300 points, or 200 to 300. And I think we are witnessing an all-time hair-raising stock market crash that I think is going to be followed by a recession in the United States. And I think by the time Obama leaves office, the fruits of his policy will be evident in foreign affairs with ISIS, in domestic policy with the economy likely have fallen apart, in immigration by the open border. And I think those qualities, that record, will be enough to kill the Democratic candidate.
All right. Dick, thank you for your time. I know you protect it, and I value it greatly to have you. I want to have you back often. DickMorris.com.
Thanks for that great introduction. I appreciate it.
Okay, and a great resource, DickMorris.com. Sign up for his videos as well, and pick up the new book, Power Grab by Dick Morris. Thanks, my friend. Have a good day. Talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Okay, Dick Morris again, and at DickMorris.com. I will say this, the videos are great. He has some good resources there, and it kind of give you some insight of some of the things that are going on. All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today, and until then, have a great day. God bless you.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us.